We just announced that we raised a $78 million Series A to launch Archaeo to change the value chain of the beauty industry. The beauty industry is inspired by creativity and always looking for new ways to be able to express ourselves. There's a tremendous opportunity to change our supply chain and to also create ingredients and products that are aligned with modern consumer values. I'm Jasmina Aganovic, and this is Ginkgo Ferment.
Welcome back, everybody, from lunch. I'm super excited about this session. We're going to hear a bunch of lightning talks from developers that are building new applications on top of Ginkgo's platform. And I want to take a minute to introduce the person you've been hearing from all morning, Jake Wintermute down here, who is our new developer evangelist, a new role here at Ginkgo Bioworks. Round of applause for Jake, and he'll be emceeing this session today. So take it away, Jake.
Woo, all right. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. First session after lunch, low energy. No, we're not doing that. This session is special because Ginkgo is not the star. Right now, our developers are the stars. We're going to be hearing from some very cool companies that use Ginkgo's platform to create their own products with biotechnology. Now, I know the relationship between a platform and a developer can be complicated, okay? I think I can capture it with this metaphor. Are there any nerds in the audience? Any nerds? Yes? You know who you are. You know who you are. Okay. So these companies, they're Frodo Baggins, and we're Samwise Gamgee. They're Batman, and we're Alfred. Any nerds? They're Princess Leia, and we're Chewbacca. That's what it means to be a platform. We got to play that supporting role well. We want to empower these heroes so that they can go out and save the world, and we can always be here with the biology that they need to do it. The first developer we'll be hearing from is Jasmina Aganovic. She's the CEO of Archaeo, where they are building an ingredient platform for beauty, a new category of ingredients powered by biotechnology. Please welcome Jasmina.
Thanks, Jake. All right, that is an excellent analogy. So excited to be here to be sharing Archaeo with you. Special day yesterday, so we officially announced our Series A, so $78 million to start this company to change the entire value chain in the beauty industry, right? Really amazing. And it's also really incredible to think about the types of partners that we have. So partners who are deep experts in various parts of the value chain. So finished product, we have iconic brands, of course, like none other than Chanel, right? Hard to compare to a brand like that. Givaudan, incredible, also iconic ingredient company. And then fantastic partners with Ginkgo, Viking, Cascade. So I feel so fortunate to have such incredible partners alongside to do this tremendous thing. And today is actually like pretty cool to be doing this for me personally, because my first job in the beauty industry, I've told a few people here, so they already have the spoiler, but my first job in the beauty industry was at a brand called Fresh, which is an LVMH-owned brand. And their office was literally right across the street from this building. So it's an amazing full circle moment for me. And I want to tell you why it's like especially impactful to think about, the start of my career and then also the prospect of what Archaeo is doing. So to understand Archaeo, we need to back up a little bit, at least 2 years ago, to when I joined Ginkgo as an entrepreneur in residence. And so a lot of people have asked me, like, entrepreneur in residence, what is that? What did you do? So I'm technical by background. I got my degree at MIT in chemical and biological engineering. It was not that long ago, but even walking into Ginkgo and looking at this thing here that Carmen is looking at, these are little tiny fermenters with like a robot that do it all kind of in high throughput, super automated. I didn't even have that in school. And man, do I wish with some of my chemie classes that we were working off of these babies instead of what we had in school. So my entrepreneur in residence started really with understanding what the heck is this thing called the Foundry. And I'll tell you right now, right? I'm technical, chemical, biological engineer, so I should like have familiarity with this. Believe me when I say, even for me, it was really intimidating to understand what the Foundry was. So for anyone in the audience right now that like saw the Foundry, is like sitting at this conference and is like, this sounds really cool, but like, I'm not sure I understand 80% of what they're talking about. That is totally normal. And I think what's really exciting about what is so new and impactful and empowering about what is happening here. So my office as an entrepreneur in residence, if you will, looked very different from my office when I worked at Fresh, when I first started my career. And that is so, so exciting to me. So yeah, started off with understanding the Foundry, what it is, what does it mean to do biology in high throughput? What does automation meets software meets biological cells? What does that all mean? And then what does it mean for the beauty industry? So then taking my industry perspective and my interpretation of the industry, where it was today, where it needed to go tomorrow, and coupling that with the Foundry, what the Foundry is capable of today, what the Foundry is capable of tomorrow, and many years in the future. And how do you marry those two together in a really powerful and impactful way? There's, of course, I'm going to start with a problem, and I'm going to solve that problem using biotechnology, and many, many important problems are being solved actively by biotechnology. You're already seeing that earlier in this conference, especially with the response to the pandemic. The beauty industry presents this other element that is talked about a little bit today, but is especially present in this industry: creativity, self-expression, and self-care. And so as I was looking at the Foundry, as I was looking at the beauty industry, there was also this element of creativity. And so creativity, as it relates to the functional building blocks of what this industry has to work with, is really interesting, because right now, the building blocks of the industry, how ingredients are made, come from things like this, right? It's an extractive relationship with our environment. We're taking things from petrochemicals, from plants, from animals, and this is how we are creating ingredients. So then you look at something like fermentation and biotechnology, and you can say, oh, but this is how we can create the next generation of ingredients. Absolutely. But where Archaeo goes further is Archaeo looks at something like this and says, how can this be a creative tool? How does this create something new? How does this create something that was not previously accessible through the current tool set, the smokestacks, the extractive relationship? And so Archaeo exists actually to create something new, to build around biology, rather than to try and fit biology into the existing construct of the beauty and the personal care industry. And that is actually a really big shift. What if this was the ingredient palette that we were working with in the beauty industry? Right now, especially with where the beauty industry is going, that palette is actually getting smaller and smaller. Consumers don't want things from petrochemicals. Consumers don't want things from animals. Consumers want things from plants. By the way, if the entire beauty industry was going to switch to just plant-based sourcing, there would not be enough plants that could grow on this planet to service one multinational supply chain. So there's a very real supply problem. There's a finite source of resources. We will be forced to move out of that sourcing. So the industry right now has just been whittling itself down to just that part of the tree of life. But I look at that, and instead of replacing what we already have, I think about expanding the palette. What if we could access anything in the tree of life, ethically and sustainably? What kinds of functionality would we open up that we haven't even imagined for the beauty industry? What types of stories could we tell? And how can we fundamentally harness biology, our own biology, as the next tool for self-expression? So that's what we're doing at Archaeo. We think about this as the next foundation for the beauty industry. The last 200 years were built on industrial chemistry. That's how we constructed our ingredients. That's how we constructed our formulations. The next 200 years are going to be built on biology. And so I started talking about this notion of biology as a tool of self-expression. We are calling it expressive biology. I love this term because for synthetic biologists, it means literally expression of things outside of cells, right? You express a protein through a cell. For consumers, it's about expressing yourself, and I love the duality of that language. What else does it mean? You know, industrial chemistry, our current products, they think about coating your hair, for example, to make it feel a certain way, to make it feel softer, smoother, shinier. Biology looks at your hair from an amino acid perspective, and it looks at every single amino acid as something that it can influence and change in a way that aligns with how you want to express yourself. So it's a fundamentally different way of thinking about the tools that we have. And so what we're doing is creating both ingredients and brands. So if we're going to create this shift, we need to enable the industry by giving them those same tools. But we also need to push the boundaries, and we're going to be doing that through products of our own. And so the question that I pose as I end here is, what can we reimagine? Can we change how we think about sun protection? Can we harness the entire microbial ecosystem that exists on our skin to manufacture 24/7 what our skin needs when we want it? Can we create proteins that memorize how we style our hair so that we can control how the amino acids within our hair follicles start to respond? So stay tuned, but really excited to be sharing this with you today. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Next, we welcome Sasha Calder. Sasha is the head of sustainability at Genomatica, where she oversees their efforts to bring the circular economy to plastics, apparel, cleaning, cosmetics, and nutrition. Please welcome Sasha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sasha Calder, and I'm the head of sustainability at Genomatica. I know you're probably thinking, what is the head of sustainability doing up here with this incredible lineup of CEOs? Well, at Genomatica, we do things a bit different. We put sustainability, regeneration, and resilience at the center of our business model. I'm going to talk about it for the next 8 minutes and what it looks like. But before I get started, I wanted to give a little bit of background. In the late 2000s, I found myself on Wall Street interviewing quants and traders to understand how they perceived risk, what mattered to them. I was studying the sociality of derivatives, what matters most as we construct financial models to understand how companies understand their own risk. And what I thought was so interesting while talking to these quants is that when I asked questions of what does it look like to have supply chain resilience, how does a natural disaster impact your reading of a company's risk? What does a human rights abuse on a supply chain do for reputational risk? And how are you thinking about an ever-changing climate? The answer was often, oh, we haven't started thinking about that yet, but one day we will. So I'm really happy standing here 10 years later that we're really thinking about it with an ever-changing environment and planet. So I work in sustainability, and I promise you this presentation will have no beautiful photos of kids holding plants or thinking about the greening of our operations. Of course, we imagine that world as well. But today, what I really want to talk about with sustainability is what is the enormous business opportunity that we have. We all know that sustainability is more than just the environmental impact that we have, thinking about having life on a habitable planet. It also relates to social justice and social impact up and down supply chains. So for the institutional investors and multinationals in the room, you've probably seen this before. The United Nations put together the Sustainable Development Goals, which gives us a full spectrum understanding of sustainability. It goes far beyond just environmental sustainability and hits the very interconnected nature of both the crises and the solutions that are required to get there. So I'm a big risk nerd, and every year the World Economic Forum comes out with the top risks. And this risk profile doesn't look very different than past years, but as we can see, the top risks to business and to our planet are mostly related to climate. What does that mean for business? We have huge risks. You've probably seen this before, and you know our climate is changing. The IPCC put out a report that shows our climate is changing. And so is business. Business is responding to these change. We're in the midst of an incredible energy transition. We're in the midst of a mobility transition, a food transition. And what do we think at Genomatica? We believe that there's a larger transition happening. Just earlier this week at the Green Energy Summit in Saudi Arabia, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, said that it's his belief that the next 1,000 unicorns are not going to be social media or technology companies. They're going to be companies solving for green hydrogen, green agriculture, green steel, and green chemicals, materials and infrastructure restructuring the world that we live in. This is a huge opportunity. And we're really proud to be leading the materials transition. We know it's a $5.4 trillion opportunity to replace ingredients and materials used in our products every day. The shoes that you wear, the clothes that you put on your body, every day as you're getting ready with your, hopefully brushing your teeth, showering, the very infrastructure of our life is being replaced. And we have the solutions to do it. I'm really proud to work at Genomatica. We're the sustainable source for rethinking what the material transition looks like. Sometimes when people talk about sustainability, it can feel super far out. But we've spent the last 20 years not just daydreaming about what this moment looks like to deliver sustainable materials. It's been my team's day job for over 20 years, and we're at this incredible moment in time. So I'm going to share 3 case examples of products that we've already commercialized that are in market and walk you through a little bit about where we're going as well. First is Brontide. It's a natural butylene glycol. We're currently producing over 1,000 tons in market, and it replaces ingredients made with harmful carcinogenic petromaterials. It's 100% renewable, and side by side to a petroleum-based product, it saves over 51% greenhouse gases. Now, I spent the last 6 years working in the beauty industry in clean beauty, and this is a huge moment. The beauty industry customer and consumers are demanding traceability, responsible sourcing, and beyond. They want sustainable packaging, and with Brontide, we're able to show that it's not just what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside that also counts. I'm an impact junkie, and our 1,000 tons is just the entry point. Imagine orders of magnitude of this. 1,4-butanediol, BDO, which is commonly used. It's a precursor for things like spandex or maybe in the soles of your shoes. We're now producing and have a line of sight for 100,000 ton capacity. It's a $5 billion market with 2.5 million tons produced each year. We currently have multiple Geno plants currently, and they're being built. And I love this one. It saves over 90% reduction in greenhouse gases next to the harmful coal-based alternative. Next up is nylon, and this is a really interesting case study for us. We work with a lot of lifestyle portfolio materials, and we also work in the industrial space, but nylon is a bridge of that. Nylon touches everything from apparel to outdoor performance to automotive industry, and it's a $22 billion industry. We're really proud at Genomatica that earlier this year, Lululemon invested in Genomatica as their first ever sustainable materials play, disrupting and able to we're helping them hit their goal to have 100% renewable ingredients. Nylon is the #1 product in their portfolio from a volume perspective, and we're shifting it to 100% bio-based. We're just getting started. We're having a big impact, and we know that we can't do it alone. We're so grateful for partnerships and collaboration that believe that many hands make light work, and it's with partnerships with folks like Ginkgo who help us accelerate our thinking and bring these technologies to market at speed and scale. So as we sit at this really golden intersection and crossroads in the industry, we know biotechnology can help us solve the climate crisis in new ways. It can help us imagine where we're going and where we've been, put social justice at the center of solutions, and care about our neighbors, partners, personal health, and the health of our planet. So I encourage all of us to look to nature for the most beautiful design. I've spent a lot of time thinking about sustainable packaging. Can you tell me of a more sustainable package that's been designed? As we continue to move forward, I hope that we continue to think about what impact looks like in a much more holistic way. Thanks so much, and join us in accelerating the transition. Thank you.
All right. Do we have Mike Gorenstein in the house? Yes, we do. Mike is the executive chairman of Kronos Group, where he leads their mission to advance research, technology, and product development in cannabis. Please welcome Mike. Mike.
All right. Well, so I feel like everyone's starting off explaining what they do as a company, so I think that's probably where I should start. I heard some references about, seems like it was Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. Only a few people cheered, so there's probably some people here who didn't really love those movies. And what we would do is help you figure out a way to enjoy it. So, cannabis is a pretty complex plant. It's something everyone jokes about. It's something that's very simple, but in actuality, there's a lot of different things it can do. Many of you have probably heard of CBD over the past few years, but say 5 years ago, you only knew what THC was. There's a lot of different cannabinoids that can actually be found within the plant, and that's why you get so many different effects depending on what type of genetic you're ultimately consuming. And so what we want to do at Kronos is find a way to actually deliver differentiated and consistent effects. And that really comes down to unlocking some of the rare cannabinoids, THC, CBD, and then there's 6 others. And we want to know how can we find a way to accomplish that. So fortunately, we ended up running into Ginkgo a few years ago. And we had been looking for some way to design something that would specifically make one actual cannabinoid without having to get sort of 50 and find a way to fractionate. It was really complicated and expensive. And so how do we go about doing that? Well, I feel like here, to everyone, you'll see a very simple diagram that explains what is it that, that the geniuses here in Boston figured out how to do. And that is start off by looking through all the different genetics that we had and figuring out what's the most efficient way, what's the most efficient pathways, where are the cannabis enzymes that really matter that we could isolate and optimize how to actually produce the specific cannabinoid. And then finding out how we could take that DNA and put it into an engineered yeast cell. And then, of course, that was a great thing to figure out. Now we have a process, but how do we actually make it? Because what's important to us as a company is delivering these products to consumers. And so, we worked closely with Ginkgo. We were very fortunate to identify an opportunity in Canada where, the majority of our operations are today, to go and purchase a facility that would belong to a generic pharmaceutical company. Ginkgo helped us train everyone there. You can now see what the fermentation facility is, which looks familiar to everyone here, and find a way to take that organism, which we've since shipped from Ginkgo to Winnipeg, Manitoba at the Kronos fermentation facility, and actually began production of the rare cannabinoids. So what does that all mean? When you think, all right, rare cannabinoids, what happens? So I think, Jason, you might have mentioned earlier, hey, there's some uninfused gummies. Actually, looking at the colors, I got to check supply chain wise. So I hear a lot of laughter in the crowd. You probably now know what it is. We'll confirm. But ultimately, we wanted to deliver something different because for those of you who go to the boring dispensaries here in Massachusetts that don't have Kronos products, you're probably just wondering, like, when will I get fermented products? When can I get something that's unique, that's consistent? And that's really what we wanted to do with Spinach is, talk to you about how we have products and how it makes you feel. That's what was so exciting. So we started off with, I'll show you here, with the THC and CBG gummies. So this is the first ever combination of a THC and a fermented CBG product that's been launched. You can see the options of what we've done here, but we've taken 2 different flavors, 2 different cannabinoids. And for those of you who've tried it, you can see how we sort of combine these 2 experiences. But ultimately, it's about modulating and balancing what that means. And this is really just a start for us. So while we're excited for CBG, we start to look to the future as we bring out other products, not just in gummies, but in other formats. So anything from from vaporizers, from pre-rolled products, to different forms of edible food. We really have a lot of optionality and a lot of opportunity. And that's what I think is so exciting about the platform and the things we've done is you may go in and wonder what's this going to do. When you go and you have a beer or a glass of wine, you know what the effect is and you have an idea. But unfortunately, with cannabis, it can be different each time. So one thing we're excited about that'll be, can't give any timing yet, but we'll say like we're looking at, in the near future is being able to introduce something with THCV. It would be very, very difficult for us to get that actually cultivating and extracting. Some of the people here might want some of the investors in Ginkgo, but realistically, unless anyone's willing to pay $10,000 for a single gummy, it's probably not going to be something that you see a lot. But because of the platform and because of what we've been able to unlock with fermentation, we'll be able to deliver that to a consumer for a similar price point if it was just extracted THC. And I think that really means a lot. In order for this industry to grow up and move forward, and we kind of are moving at a similar speed to synthetic biology right now, it's important to have consistency. It's important from a regulatory perspective and from responsibility that we can deliver the same thing each time, so you don't accidentally eat a gummy. And by the way, they're not infused. I was joking. And you have too much. You don't know what it is. That's one of the things that keeps people away. So I think that's important. But also, we have medical patients that need to know exactly what they're getting. Their doctors. One of the reasons that they're nervous about prescribing is you don't know what the exact amount is. So if you think and you back up overall, what's this platform allow us to do? It basically gives us a precision to be able to make consistent branded products and to be able to deliver those at a cost-efficient level so that consumers can afford it, so that medical patients can afford it, and you unlock all the benefits of cannabis. And that allows us to develop cannabis as an industry similar to how you've seen different consumer product industries, pharma, everything where you can get the same thing each time. And for us, I feel like we're able to leapfrog 5 or 10 years in the future, having met Ginkgo, being able to do the work. And I think one of the things most exciting is these products are actually already, I would say on shelf, but they've apparently all sold out. So they'll be back on shelf soon. We're able to produce, whatever we need. So that's great. And I hope some of you will, be able to try them in Canada. And for those of you who are politically inclined, please help us push your local politicians to make sure that you'll be able to try these great products in the U.S. soon. All right. Thank you.
All right, so next we welcome Michelle Zhu. Michelle is the CEO of Hue, a biotechnology startup dedicated to producing the world's most sustainable dyes. Please join me in welcoming Michelle.
Thanks so much. All righty. Okay, well, hello everyone. So again, my name is Michelle. I am the CEO and co-founder of Hue. We started the company about 2.5 years ago now out of Bio based on technology that my co-founder and chief scientific officer, Tammy, was actually developing out of the Duber lab at Berkeley. And essentially, Hue is a color company. We are creating the next generation of dyes and pigments for the many industries that are shaping the health and future of the planet. And so that means, right, the colors that we put on our clothes, on our faces, and our hair, but we're also thinking about the color in our food or the paint on our walls. I mean, if you think about it, color is literally infused into the products that we all use and consume every day. And the history of that color is that thousands of years ago, these dyes and pigments were once extracted from nature. You had to crush up leaves or in some cases even animals to be able to kind of produce the specific colors of interest. And that process was really laborious, it was really expensive and resource intensive. And then the other thing is it didn't create very high performing or consistent colors. That was a huge barrier to industrial viability, which is why you had some colors like royal purple that got its name because it was literally worth more than gold in how expensive the production process was. And largely today, those remain kind of the same barriers for the industrial viability of some of these plant-based colors. And so you can imagine how exciting science really was when the Germans figured out how to create color from petrochemicals. About 150 years ago, it really made color suddenly not just really cheap, but also highly functional to serve massive industries. But then, of course, that came at a trade-off of an enormous amount of environmental and even in many cases carcinogenic harm. So these dyes that we're using in our products all around us, they are not only fundamentally fossil fuel based and made in an extremely carbon intensive process, but the production process also involves a number of toxic chemicals and heavy metals that actually end up as trace materials, trace substances, both on the products that we're using and in many cases in soils and waterways. And when you have 20% of global industrial water pollution coming from just textile dyeing alone as one example, it's really devastating many communities all around the world. So that's the problem that Hue is on a mission to change. And we believe that synthetic biology really holds the key and the answer to do that. We see a landscape and opportunity right now where there's this growing ecosystem of tools like CRISPR and platforms like Ginkgo that are really opening up brand new possibilities to work with biology and go back to nature. And so we, and right now we're in this time when consumers also are waking up to planetary health and the needs that are going on in climate change more than ever before. And that's really created this opening for biology to kind of demonstrate its possibilities and opportunities in reinventing and uprooting fundamental categories like food and oils. And so for Hue, we are then harnessing that revolution in synthetic biology to culture nature's rainbow and clean up this space of color. The way that we do that is probably a pretty familiar process to those of you in the room here. We really start by going back to nature as having the blueprint for color. So we look at the specific colors like beet red or flamingo pink, and we study the enzymes within those plants and animals that are responsible for creating those colors. We identify and sequence them and then express them within our proprietary microbes so that we can grow them in large fermentation tanks and then on the back end be experts at productizing and purifying the materials according to the specs of our customers to create a drop-in solution to the supply chain. But on top of that, I think we really saw an opportunity when we first started as and we're looking and asking ourselves the question, Tammy and I, at the beginning of their days, how do we take advantage of the incredible technology that Tammy was working on, but also this growing ecosystem to do things in a way that's better and faster than ever before? And that's really why we came to Ginkgo in the beginning and how we really embarked on this partnership that we just announced in the last couple of years. We're really proud at Hue to be just one of the earliest companies to be taking advantage of this platform and opportunity. We are kind of defining ourselves as what we're calling a SynBio 2.0 company, one that is able to be super product focused and do execution faster than ever before at lower capital costs than ever before to really define kind of the future of the SynBio landscape. And so that's exactly what we think is the opportunity here, and we think that it's enabled by being able to separate on areas of expertise. So if Hue is a color company focused on knowing exactly what colors are industrially relevant for our customers and knowing exactly how to apply it, we can therefore be kind of the experts at identifying some of those initial pathways, identifying the molecules, and then on the back end, being experts at the productization and the application process and the delivery to our customers. But we can save a lot of that middle stuff with the bioengineering and the strain development and the titer improvement that has really slowed the companies of the past down. We can farm all of that out to the ecosystem that's developing and growing out there to really do it in a way that's faster than ever before. So that's really kind of the vision that we see and the opportunity here at Ginkgo. And the result is that we're able to create a bio-based platform solution for color, where we're able to create colors that are lower in carbon and toxicity footprint compared to chemical-based dyes, but also much higher in performance, more cost-effective and more scalable than the traditional plant-based solutions. So our starting point and what we're working with Ginkgo on now is the indigo for your genes. And it's really exciting because indigo is actually the essential ingredient for making your genes. Even though you don't need a lot of it, it's the most visible ingredient. And it's because of the way it binds to cotton that kind of creates the iconic, natural, faded look that we all know and love in our genes. And so what we're able to make is basically a bioidentical molecule. And that's extremely important for the supply chain because it means that we're able to plug in right at the point of dyeing, but the rest of the process from growing the cotton, dyeing the yarn, and then weaving it into fabric and creating the garments, that all can remain exactly the same. Therefore, reducing the kind of pain in adoption and implementation that is often faced by the supply chain. And so with that, and I promise I'm done, Jake, we are very proud today to be working with some of the best known names all around the denim industry. And I can tell you that jeans, cleaner jeans powered by Hue is coming soon. But also, I'm even more excited about the future of color powered by this synthetic biology revolution that is also very much on its way. Thank you. Sorry.
All right. So today's next developer is Nicole Richards. Nicole is the CEO of Alonia, a company seeking solutions to the world's largest waste challenges. They use microorganisms to sense, remediate, and upcycle waste streams into valuable resources. Please welcome Nicole.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here with you. I'm Nicole Richards, CEO of Alonia, and I wanted to start with something I wanted to share with you since you're all my closest friends and family here. It's a new brand that we're going to launch later this month, but it really represents what we think of as our vision and who we are. So I'm going to start off with this. Let me know what you think. What do you think? All right, it's a go. You still have to listen to me for a few more minutes, sorry. It's been 250 years since the start of the Industrial Revolution, and it has had profound impact on our lives, in the quality of our life, and the technology that we have today, which has been amazing. Conversely, the impact on our planet has been devastating, with a long list of environmental consequences, from polluted land and water and climate change. The good news is that nature will heal itself. The bad news, it will take thousands of years to undo just what's been done in the last 100 years. And we simply cannot wait that long. We need to act with urgency. And so Sasha and I didn't plan this, but according to the UN and the sustainability goals that has set the challenge for what we need to accomplish as a planet for planetary health by 2030, Alonia is working with industry and government on the 5 that I've got highlighted here. This is a challenge that we exist to solve. But let me tell you a little bit about who we are, and to understand that and to see how we think is to know that we see waste as a failure of the imagination. In nature, nothing is wasted because nature is the original innovator, recycling everything in a circular ecosystem. Our ethos at Alonia is to work in harmony with nature and to fast forward the future solutions to the present day. So our mission is to leverage the power of biotechnology and advanced engineered systems to help develop a waste and pollution-free world. Our mission against this is in these 3 areas. So it's in remediation, which is using and finding organisms or enzymes that will break contaminants and render them inert. It's upcycling, which is taking a low-value waste and upcycling it to a high-value product. And sensing, which is looking for biological sensors that will find where those contaminants are and help inform the solutions of remediation and upcycling. So we're not reinventing nature, we're collaborating with nature so we can hit fast forward. And this challenge is expanding if we think about how our world is changing and some of those factors on the right. Just as the chemical and mechanical solutions that exist today are reaching their limits. So some of these trends are GDP growth or urbanization, where 70% of our population will be living in cities by 2050, creating super waste nodal points, right when land is at a premium and limited. So we've got a long list of these new and contemporary challenges that are happening that are demanding different and better solutions. And this is the paradigm shift that Alonia is working on. And now is the moment to make this shift, thanks to a confluence of factors. So when we look at what's been done in the bioremediation field, and really it's been over the last thousands of years, since 600 BC, microorganisms have been used in waste. If we think about in the 60s, the first microorganisms were identified to clean up oil from some of the oil spills. And some of you might be surprised to know that the first engineered biology was deployed in the environment in the 70s and 80s. But the progress has been there, but it's been slow. When we think about the progress that we've all heard about today, and we know, from biology and the development there with synthetic biology and reading, writing, editing DNA, the computational powers that exist today and haven't before, what Ginkgo is doing and the Foundry, it really has made tremendous strides. And Jason showed a chart earlier today about the cost. And if you think about the environmental field, it's kind of at the end of the process. It's the place where nobody wants to spend money. So to take this transformational biology, it has to be a cost effective. And now is the time that we can do that, to take the biology that's been developed for these other industries and bring them into the environmental solutions. So we're looking at the solutions across these 4 areas. So in mining, it's upcycling metals, and it's also cleaning up the waste from things like acid mine drainage ponds. In energy, we're improving the environmental footprint left behind. Industry is really all about breaking down contaminants from things like, you might have heard of PFAS or perfluorinated compounds that are in your water or other emerging contaminants. And plastics, we're working on upcycling plastics. So we heard earlier the sustainability manufacturing part of that, but what we're looking at is those that haven't been manufactured sustainability that need to be broken down. And we're working on polyurethane foams and nylons. So when we look at what we're working on and what Ginkgo is enabling us to do with the synthetic biology development across those 4 areas and several projects we've been working on over the last year, we really believe that through this, waste is a failure of the imagination. So we believe that we can help create a world where legacy waste has been remediated, where post-consumer and post-manufacturing waste are upcycled into new products, and our climate is healthy. All of this is collaborating nature with engineering systems to create those solutions. And I'm incredibly fortunate and lucky to work with a team at Alonia. I'm going to ask them to stand up and embarrass them. But really, I'm asking you, if you have any questions about what we're doing, we would love to talk for hours with you about it. So please, afterwards, let us know. Thank you.
All right, next we welcome John McIntyre, CEO of Motif Foodworks. He's here to reinvent the way science is applied to make plant-based foods better tasting, more nutritious, and more sustainable. Please welcome John McIntyre.
I love food. The only thing I love more than food is science. Every day, as the CEO of Motif Foodworks, I get to indulge my 2 favorite passions. So I want to first start by thanking Jason Kelly, Jason Kack, Reshma, and the whole Ginkgo team, as well as my early investors, Viking and Brian, Peter and GA, Max, Julian, for giving me the opportunity to lead and build what I think is going to be a transformative company in the food industry. So thank you. Now that I've said some nice things, could you approve that CapEx I sent out earlier this week? Just saying. My company, Motif Foodworks, is totally focused on one mission. Our goal is to make plant-based foods taste better and more nutritious. We want to make them so good that people crave them. Not just say, it's a pretty good alternative. I mean, really say, I cannot wait to eat this product that I know is good for me, it's good for the environment. So why is that important? Well, consumers, I mean, when we're in the food industry, we talk about consumers. And I see a lot of consumer benefited companies being built here today. The consumer is very interested and empowered in evolving how they interact with their food. They are concerned where it's made, what's its impact, is it good for me? What was the role of animal agriculture? Was it a problem? Is it something I'm concerned about? But there's a 4th factor, and that's this. You're saying, oh, it's an environmentally thoughtful packaging. It is that, but it's something else. I'm putting it on me. It's a badge. Look at me. I make decisions about sustainability. In the consumer world, we call that badge value. That means people are saying, it's cool. I want you to see me do this. So this whole plant-based food movement is cool. And that is a big driver and opportunity. If it's so cool, you know, it's like the great Moneyball line. If he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? So why aren't people buying more? There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of trial. But we have not penetrated mainstream consumers to a great degree. And if you ask the consumer, the first thing they will tell you is, I don't want to compromise on taste that much. Early motivated consumers are buying, and they may repeat, but the mainstream consumer buys, doesn't repeat, doesn't buy it every week, and then eventually they'll try it again 6 months later, hoping it's better. Our company believes you have to solve that problem. If you look at the one product that is jumping over into mainstream, it's oat milk. And why? It actually tastes good and it functions. Now, longer term, I'm not so sure that oat milk isn't going to have some other issues because it's really full of sugar. So it's not so nutritious, but it does taste good. So our goal is to solve both issues. So what are we solving for? We'll start with what I would call the usual suspects, which is how do we make alternative meat products taste good? How do we make alternative dairy products taste good? But then even going further, how do we improve the nutrition of products that are plant-based? And when I say plant-based, that's one option, but you could even extend it to all meat-free. So for example, there's a lot of companies working on mycoproteins. They still have taste problems. Our capabilities and technology will absolutely deliver against those as well. So now I'm going to throw myself under the bus here. If you look at why the products don't taste good, you first start with the fact that the proteins, the raw materials, the big bulk of what happens in making a plant-based food are with starting materials that are chemically and physically very different than replacing animal. They don't work well. Here's where I throw myself under the bus. I say for 20, 40 years, we've been trying to fix that by what I call mask and modify. Let's throw a bunch of flavors at it. Let's try to figure out a way to cover up the taste. And I was the head of R&D for the largest plant-based protein company, did that exact same thing. And by the way, worked about this much, and it no longer has any more runway. Every other science in life sciences has embraced cutting-edge technology. Food and nutrition is late to the game. We as a company are interested in understanding fundamental issues with how foods perform. In doing so, we have the ability to create new discoveries. The reason Motif can do that and others can't is because when I discover something, I don't have to invest tens, hundreds of millions of dollars to generate technology to make those. I have partners. So I'm allowed to really be at the cutting edge of the science and then use my partnership with Ginkgo to find and develop those new products. We use a holistic approach to innovation. We analyze food with new tools from other industries. We discover new ingredients with new tools like synthetic biology. And we design simultaneously. We are a food tech company, not a biotech company. We're solving food issues. Biotech is a great partner for us. From that, we generate ingredients, ingredient systems, and full products. How does Ginkgo help us? They provide us strains that produce our targets at very, very high level, but maybe do something nobody else could do. Tap the complete opportunity of biology. Egg whites are important in all kinds of food applications. There are companies that are trying to express ovalbumin, the main egg white protein, from a hen. Who says that that is the best protein for gelling, foaming, binding that you use egg whites from? Real-time work between our two companies, hundreds of different species, dozens of proteins, tested in a matrix to get the best version to the market. Nobody can compete with that. So we're in the market today with two products going commercial. One is a protein that produces taste and color in meat called Hemami. The other is Apotex, a plant fiber that significantly improves the texture of meat. You will get to taste it at the cocktail hour in Meatballs that are going to be available to you. We have a portfolio of ingredients coming to market over the next 3 years, which we're aggressively pursuing in partnership with Ginkgo as well as our other avenues. And we hope you enjoy those meatballs.
All right. Yes. Developers. Developers. This is the part of the program where it's my job to try to tie together all these developer success stories that we've just seen. And I think I can do it with this very elaborate metaphor. Do you guys like ribosomes? Any ribosomes? Ribosome fans in the audience? Yeah, right? Yeah, we like ribosomes. So you go out in nature, right? And you see, oh, there's an oak tree, there's a human, there's a yeast, there's a sea squirt. And it would be easy to say, well, they're all doing different things. They're all doing different things. They have nothing in common. But my biologists know that under the hood, all of them are running on ribosomes. Right? Right? Can we give it up for ribosomes? Can we? Here at the Ferment conference, if nowhere else. It's not just ribosomes. It's not just ribosomes. It's membranes and DNA and central metabolism. There are a lot of these functions that biology does very well and the same in everything that lives. Okay, so now to walk this metaphor over to business, Ginkgo's business is to find the ribosomes of the biotech industry. We can't build every company, just like we can't build every flower. You need the genius, the care and attention of a designer to get all the details right. But what we can do is we can find the core Foundry Services that support an entire ecosystem and then do those very well for as many partners as possible. The next speaker is here to bring forward one of these new Foundry Services. Please join me in welcoming the head of Codebase at Ginkgo Bioworks and a man who loves ribosomes even more than I do, Patrick Boyle.
I thought Jake was going to introduce me with a different metaphor, which is you've heard from Frodo. Now you have to hear from Samwise Gamgee. So, you know, if you thought the ribosome thing was nerdy, it's going to get a little bit nerdier. And then we'll take it back to reality after that. So I'm Patrick Boyle, very excited to be here. We've had a lot of developers speaking about how they use our platform. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about the platform itself and how that can enable the next generation of developers. So, you know, we often talk at Ginkgo about our mission is to make biology easier to engineer. One of the things I want to talk about is how do we actually make that platform easy to engineer? How do we make it more accessible? If you heard Jason Kelly talk, he's very good at talking about this in terms of their two key parts of our platform, our Foundry and our Codebase. And the Codebase is really made up of reusable biological parts. Great, what does that actually mean? How do you actually reuse biological parts? That's really what I'm here to talk about today. The reason why this is important is if you think about where we're at with regards to engineering biology, we're still in the punch card era of cell programming. So my PhD advisor, Pam Silver, is here, so she remembers this. But when I did my PhD, and I know there are a bunch of other PhDs here, I spent 6 years basically putting small amounts of liquid together to smash pieces of DNA together to hope that they would produce the thing that I wanted to make. And if you look across the industry outside Ginkgo, this is really how it's still done today. I think it's really important that we use organization of Codebase assets to help more developers move to the market faster by cleaning up the process of finding the right biological parts and putting them in the right place. So the question I want to ask the developers here, if people are thinking about starting new companies, is how many bench scientists does it take to build your first commercial strain? It's usually a lot. I think working with Ginkgo, the correct answer is that it should be 0. And it really has to be 0. If you think about how much it costs to operate a lab, if you're a founder here and you're thinking about building a technical organization, let's say that you want 4 scientists to start working for your company. 4 scientists, well, they're going to need a lab. You probably have to pay them. Scientists like salaries. So 4 scientists, that's going to cost you about $1 million a year. $1 million a year is a lot, especially when you're a small company. You want to make sure that they are focused on the most important thing for your company, which is developing your product. I really like putting pieces of DNA together, but that's not product development. That's building the factory to make your product. It turns out there's a way of approaching this. I really like abusing metaphors from the software industry. So again, remember, I'm Samwise Gamgee, not Frodo, so I'm going to use a lot of nerdy metaphors. Is in the software world, how do you help developers use your platform in an easier way? Well, you bundle together all the assets you need to put together so you can get started working on your product faster. So if you want to develop an application for the iOS App Store, use the iOS, what's called SDK, or Software Development Kit. Same thing if you want to develop for Microsoft Windows, use their SDK. An SDK is basically the collection of tools and libraries, documentation, licenses that you need to put together in one bundle to make an application for a platform. It's basically the instruction manual and tool set you need to make a new application quickly. So today at Ginkgo, I'm talking about our approach to SDKs. Because we work in cell programming, we're calling them CDKs, or cell development kits. The essential idea here is that with CDKs, we can build the organism that you need so that you, the developer, can focus on building your product. And our first CDKs are focused on protein production. I don't have a lot of time today to go through the details on each of these CDKs, but there are a number of events coming up where developers can meet with us and learn more. But just to give you a preview, the first CDK I'm talking about is this Pichia CDK. This is a yeast that is naturally very good at making protein. What we've done in the CDK is we've combined best-in-class parts and designs to help you enable the use of a yeast like Pichia to make your product faster. One example for this, for the former iGEMers and synthetic biologists in the room, is promoters. So there are industry standard promoters that people use in these kinds of yeast systems. Using Ginkgo's Foundry and machine learning and a lot of tools, we've been able to develop better promoting systems for these yeasts. So we have promoters developed in our fermentation systems that enable more than 20-fold increased expression of your protein in the system versus the industry standard. I was actually going to spend some time walking through a case study on how we actually made this happen. This is work that we did in partnership with Motif to produce their product, but in the interest of time, I'll just say, go taste the meatballs, and in the break, I'll talk to you more about how we made that. So that's the Pichia CDK. So a engineered yeast for producing protein with best-in-class parts put together on top of the Ginkgo platform to enable people to make protein faster. I have another CDK to talk about, which is it's in beta. It's the fungal CDK. So a lot of people also use fungi to produce proteins, and this is a new CDK that we're developing here at Ginkgo. This actually came via a partnership and now acquisition of a really great team in the Netherlands called Dutch DNA. So these folks are all experts in developing fungal systems for industrial production. They're developers themselves, and we brought them on board the Ginkgo platform to help us develop better code-based assets like the fungal CDK for producing proteins at even higher levels. More Samwise Gamgee content. So for folks who don't know what a fermenter looks like, normally when you produce proteins with filamentous fungi, it's very challenging because filamentous fungi, they're known for producing protein. That's great. They're also known for, as the name suggests, filamenting. That's not so great if you're trying to grow things in a tank. So what the Dutch DNA folks did is that they engineered their fungal systems to produce high amounts of protein without producing large amounts of filamentation. That means you actually get yeast-like fermentation performance with a fungal system. So what you're seeing here on the top is an engineered fungal system that basically grows like yeast in a bioreactor, which means higher oxygen transfer rates, higher biomass rates, higher protein production. So those are the two CDKs. As I said, we'll have some sessions coming up for developers to learn more about using them. Just a few different highlights for the features that are enabled here. Again, the fungal system is in beta because we're working to integrate it into our foundries, and the Pikia system is available to work with today. Okay, so how are you actually going to use these systems and Ginkgo's platform to develop a better product with Ginkgo? So again, think of what those 4 scientists would do if they're doing the work of putting a strain together to make your product. The journey from the beginning of starting R&D to developing a full-scale product can be complicated. There are many different paths to success. And in fact, many of the products that came out of, say, generation 1.0 of synthetic biology basically navigated this path through many, many person hours of work. What we're doing at Ginkgo with CDKs is that we've developed better work plans for using our foundry to develop these commercial strains faster based on all the lessons we've learned across dozens of projects over the last few years. So rather than saying, let's try a few things with a few bench scientists, we're using our foundries and automation to iterate through hundreds and thousands of different designs in the time that your 4 scientists, doing the best they can, would be working on tens of designs. And ultimately, we want this to be a way for new developers to get on board the platform, use our initial phase 1 CDK to develop a useful commercial strain, and then stay with Ginkgo as we help them develop ever increasingly improved versions of that strain as they go to market. Again, we're focusing on protein production today because we've had a lot of success recently with partners to develop really great protein products. You've heard about both of them today. One is the meatball that you'll be trying later from Motif Foodworks. And the other we heard about this morning with respect to vaccinia capping enzyme. This is a protein that is essential for manufacturing mRNA vaccines. And our program with Aldevron enabled them to produce 10 times more of this protein, which is extremely important as we try to manufacture enough vaccines for the entire world. Okay, so in terms of using the CDK, again, I think this is really impactful for those new developers who are trying to start a company, want to create a product with synthetic biology to help them focus on developing their product faster. And to do that, we want to make this offering accessible to those companies. So in terms of what does it cost to use the CDK, our introductory pricing for the phase 1 work is $100,000. So remember again, 4 scientists working for a year is going to cost you $1 million. So for 1/10 of the cost, we think we can do more than 10 times the amount of work and help you focus those scientists working on, to work on your product rather than putting pieces of DNA together to make your cell. So we're really excited about this. Looking forward to talking to new developers about that product. And today, in fact, we've been doing some outreach with different companies to try to get them on the platform. And to give you an example of the type of company that we're able to bring on the platform with CDKs for the first time, I'm really excited to tell you a little bit about Humblebee Bio. So this is a company where the founders were really inspired by the lack of biodegradable high-performance materials. They're also great scientists, and they identified really interesting proteins that are made in, you guessed it, bees. And what they need is they need Ginkgo's platform to help express and optimize the production of those bee proteins so that they can start to do applications testing and make sure that they have a usable material. So, this is just the first of many companies we hope to introduce to the platform via the CDK. Okay. I didn't really explain as much as I really wanted to about the CDK. There's a lot more to talk about. A few ways to do that. One, the CDK team is here. So all the folks on the slide here are going to be sitting in the back. I think they're wearing red hats to make them easier to identify. And these are the actual scientists and business development folks who've been working with customers over the last couple of months to make sure that this is the right product for them. And then on November 11th, myself, the CDK team, and Jake Wintermute, of course, will be doing a developers online event called Grow with Ginkgo. And this is actually going to include hands-on sessions with our technical teams to help new developers understand how to use the platform better. So with that, thank you, and thank you, Jake.
All right, so now we got to sum up what we've seen this afternoon. Okay, we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to ask Patrick to stay on stage with me. I need your energy.
Got it.
We need some big developers' energy for this session. All right, I need it. I need it from you. Please give it to me. Give it to me. Developers. All right, you ready, Patrick?
Developers.
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 Good. Okay, cut it off. Cut it off. Stop. What have we seen? What have we seen? Ginkgo is here for the developers. Some of these companies they've already launched. They're out there transforming industries, but that's not enough. That's not enough. We want more developers. So now we've got the CDK. It's going to make it faster and cheaper and easier to become a developer. But that's still not enough. It's not enough. I want hundreds of developers. I want you to be a developer. I want you to be a developer. I want you to be a developer. And so that's why, surprise announcement, I did not clear this with Patrick. We are today offering each of you your own personal CDK. Please look under your seats. No, I'm just kidding. We can't do that. We can't do that. Nobody looked. Nobody looked. Nobody looked. But directionally, that's where we want to go.
That's right.
That's where we want to go. We need more programs like the CDK. Plug and play, they're ready to wear. They reduce the friction between knowing what you want to do and making it happen on the platform. So I tell you what they know over in software. You know, over in regular tech.
Yeah, old tech.
Over in old tech. Over in non-living tech.
Original
I'll tell you
tech.
what they know. They know you've got to love your developers. You have to love your developers. If you're making an operating system, if you're making a platform, it lives and dies by the people who choose your platform for their creations. You have to love your developers. You have to shower them with technical documentation.
That's right.
And licenses. Can we give it up for licenses? Licenses and documentation and support. And support, yes.
Don't forget standards.
And what?
Standards.
And standards? Can we give it up for standards? Yes, yes. And last but not least, can we give it up for the developers? For the developers.